Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Employee to Boss podcast. My name is Haley Hayhurst, and I am your host. I am so excited to be talking with Angie Ringler today. She is the owner of Tangie LLC. They do business as waste-free products. So I have been on a environmentalist journey for quite a while now. I was vegan for the environment and still do very environmentally conscious acts. And so that's why I was so excited to talk to Angie today. Angie started her business based on curing an issue that she was experiencing, sensitive skin. And from there, her company is now a carbon neutral business using only plant-based ingredients and is cruelty-free. But what I think makes Angie's business most unique is she taught herself how to discover solutions for her own personal health and skin issues, and then from there started her own business where she is in charge of all of these products, figuring out what's next, and she's on such an amazing journey. When we start our business or become an entrepreneur, sometimes we think a lot about why did I spend so much money on college, or why did I spend so much time in corporate life? But everything that we have done up until that point gave us the experience that we needed to get where we are today. So every step of the way leads you to where you are now. And I definitely want you to think about that when you're starting your business or thinking about starting your business. Use your past experiences to succeed in whatever endeavor you're going on now. We also talk about pricing your products in a sustainable way, pricing your services, thinking about the cost for the future. And we talk a lot about client retention, especially Angie has a product-based business. And so when her clients run out of products, she wants to make sure that they're still around to order more products from her. So it's a lot of resourcefulness and genuine connections. If you love this episode and want to try out some of Angie's products on her website, wastefreeproducts.com, she has generously given all of us a 20% off your purchase discount if you use the promo code BOSSPOD, one word, BOSSPOD. So let's get right into this amazing episode with Angie Ringler, the owner of Tangie LLC. Angie, welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to have you on today. You are such an environmental activist, such an empowering person. And so I'm very excited to have this conversation with you.
Cool. I'm really happy to be here and share anything I can about myself or my business. And, we're always happy to talk about ourselves, aren't we?
Always, right? That's why people have podcasts.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, if you want to get started by just telling us your background and how you came to start your own business.
That's a really good question. And it's definitely one that we're asked periodically, right? What's your background? How did you come to do this? And I probably say that my background, how I got to where I am today is because I can navigate the laundry room. I mean, I know that sounds kind of weird and quirky, but one day there I was standing in my laundry room, reading over the ingredients of a laundry bottle because I was having skin irritations. I mean, you see, I'm a redhead. I have sensitive skin. For the listeners, I'm a redhead. I've had sensitive skin issues my whole life. And I was really trying to solve my own problem and seeing what that could be. Right. So it kind of started with that evolution of laundry. And there I was in my laundry room reading the ingredients, which there weren't any. Mm-hmm. So I started feeling like that witch. I was going to stand over my cauldron and I was going to start making things of my own and see if I could really solve my own problem. And that's really for me where my business education started from, right? It's really that passion-driven moment where I was like, let me see what I can solve for myself. And there's a good chance that I'll be able to solve that problem for somebody else. And if I look back at those early days, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about the ingredients. I didn't know what half the words meant on the bottle. The few words that were listed there, some of them were pretty long. It really was about research. learning for myself, taking that initiative to, I still love going to the library, so I went to the library, I checked out some books, did a ton of online research, and which probably is where my background in paralegal, I can't dismiss my education at Nova Southeastern University. It's a great time that I had there. So it gave me that kind of footing to learn how to do research and, kind of dig deeper and find out those things for myself. And as I began to dig deeper and find solutions, it just catapulted into this could really be a business. And that wasn't an overnight decision for myself. Clearly, I didn't put the two together initially, but spending some time with SCORE and the small business development centers that have a lot of great free resources available for anybody thinking about taking the leap into something else that you're doing now. I would highly recommend looking at resources like that, but they really allowed me to speak out loud and kind of focus some of my thoughts. And that's where it kind of came together of, wow, maybe I do have a business already. It was just a nonprofit business because I was making stuff and just giving it away, to my friends and my family and stuff. So that's really where my background came from to where it is today. And my business, which is called Tangie, but we do business as waste-free products, is all about bringing natural products, plastic-free products to the masses to give people the opportunity to, use less chemicals in their life, but more importantly, that we don't send all that wasteful trash to the landfills, or even worse, that it ends up floating in our ocean.
Absolutely. That's really an interesting way and an amazing way to think about it, how your background as paralegal or in paralegal really has helped you where you are today. Because I think a lot of people, especially when they're starting, they're like, why did I even go to school? If I just want to be an entrepreneur and start my business, start my life, why did I even go to school? But every single step of the way really leads you to where you are. And so, of course, it was your passion of finding something that doesn't irritate your skin, which I totally understand. This is very personal, but I am allergic to a lot of deodorants, and it just is so irritating. And it's just like, ugh,
no pun intended, irritating, right?
Exactly. And so it's just things like that. That's our passion. And then our education and past experiences really help us drive that forward, because you have to have some sort of entrepreneurial spirit to be able to start your own business and really say, hey, this is something that is a struggle for me. I want to figure this out. Maybe I can help other people on the way, right?
Yeah. And I'm sure even your experience of now that you have a reaction to a product, it's probably led you to look into things you probably know more about deodorant than the average person does. And you probably would have never have guessed that you would be so knowledgeable about that topic.
Right. Out of all the topics in my life, I would have thought it'd be deodorant. So that's funny. So one thing I definitely wanted to ask you today is, I am very behind the whole waste-free movement. I was vegan for the environment, like very into the environment, and just, it's dying. People need to pay attention to it, right?
Yes.
And so something that I struggled with, but you're doing it on a bigger scale, is staying motivated when you may feel like you're the only one committed to the cause. And it may have to be, other people using plastic at the store, but you using your one reusable bag. Or even in terms of business, like there's so many consumers for products with plastic and wasteful products, and they might not even know about yours, but you have to stay dedicated to it, or your whole business it can't function without you, right?
Right, exactly. Right.
So how do you stay in that mindset?
Well, it's a great question, because every day I feel like I'm having to stay in that positive mindset, not only for myself. It really has nothing to do with business. It has to do with what kind of planet am I living in now? What's it going to be like for the next generation?
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I, we don't even have children of our own, but we know lots of kids and they're awful cute and we love them. And therefore we feel some obligation to leave them a semblance of a planet that we have the opportunity to grow up in. So when I think about my responsibility to that's led me into this business ultimately started at home. So it is about every day making sure that I am finding ways to stay positive about what I'm doing. And it's very hard. You know, one trip to the grocery store, one trip to a concert. I love live music. Shout out to my band, The Grateful Dead. It is about finding ways to kind of rise above it, and how for years I would just get upset. I would get angry. I would even say kind of negative things to people, like at the grocery, especially when somebody takes a gallon milk jug and puts it in a plastic bag and carries it out. Like I couldn't stop myself from saying something. But then at some point I realized that the negative aspect and nitpicking at people, because we're all on this journey at different points. Mm-hmm. I started out too being wasteful, not because I didn't know. So then when I started to realize that pointing at people was not the right thing to do. It was really about leading by example. So let me give you a good instance that just happened recently, because now we're going back to restaurants finally, and I was out at a restaurant with my aunt, and I tend to take a container with me anytime we eat out. Mm-hmm. Because, I'm probably going to have a leftover and I don't want to take that styrofoam container that they're going to offer me at my table. So I pulled out my little cloth bag and it had my glass container in it. And when the waitress came over and asked if, she could bring a box for our leftover, and then I said, no, I've got mine right here. And she was kind of a young girl and she was like, oh my God, I never thought to bring my own container. She goes, I carry a bag to the store and I try to do these things. I'm trying to be zero waste. The fact that she even used that term made me smile on the inside and the outside. But it was that moment too that reminded me that this is how it is. You just lead by example. And I guarantee you that girl will probably start carrying a container, or she'll think about it. She may not in the next few meals that she has out, but there's some point that I bet you her change comes. And it might have been from just that one moment of me carrying my container.
Absolutely. And she might tell someone about the experience, and
it'd be even better, right?
Right.
Yes.
And so I love that example, because it may seem like we're just talking to no one or doing this just for ourselves, but it's really the example that we're leaving, right? Yeah. Something I just remembered was when I was in college, I wrote for my school's magazine, and it was like a small magazine. I mean, it was published everywhere, but I would always find just copies on the floor. And, I was like, okay, cool. I wrote that, but that's fine. And then I was in a coffee shop across town and I looked over and I saw someone reading the article that I wrote. It was like an older man reading this article that I wrote. And it was such a surreal moment. And just knowing that other people are seeing what I'm publishing or what I'm doing. Same with podcasting. When I first started this business, I was like, there's so many podcast editors out there. There's so many podcasts out there, but do they need me? Do they need my services, my help? And so it was really a whole mindset thing of continuing to tell myself, yes, they need me for these reasons, and showing other people what I do, my offers, my services. It's just repetition is the only way to success. And in your case, you may have used a glass container hundreds of times and maybe no one noticed, but then that one time you used it, someone noticed, and that made it all worth it.
Right? It could be the ripple effect that hits so many people, and I would never even know it.
Exactly. So when you got into this industry, it was obviously to help your skin and all of those things. And there's a lot of people in the zero waste industry now selling waste-free products. Now, of course, not as many as usual, typical, traditional products, but did you feel some sort of like competition with others, or do you just like, what was your mindset around that when you got into this industry?
I didn't even, honestly, I thought my competition were like seventh generation and Mrs. Myers and Method, like the products that I saw Target, Publix, when I would look at like that kind of cleaning product aisle, that's who and honestly, Haley, for a long time, I thought I wanted to be seventh generation. Like I started out my company, I just made natural products, but put them in very traditional bottles. If you looked at my early line of products, it was spray bottles and plastic laundry bottles, just like you see at the store. It wasn't for a few years in that I realized just because I was using good ingredients didn't mean that I was part of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it was one day I was, I'm fortunate to live in Central Florida to be surrounded by an abundance of business things that we need. So I was able to drive to Orlando and pick up bottles, loading up my Prius with a ton of plastic bottles. And I was driving home one day, I had made multiples of these trips. And I was like, where are all these plastic bottles going? What's the deal? So I thought, well, let me start a bottle return program. That seemed like a good answer, right? So I changed my labels to say, if you return this bottle back to the store that you bought it, you get $2 off your next purchase. It was like a coupon that never expired. And I thought that was genius on my part.
Yeah.
Needless to say, we got like not even 1% of bottles back. It was really sad. And I hit a fork in the road for myself one day. I was like, this is not how I choose to live my life at home. I was an eco-minded person kind of before I even realized what the word eco was. This was, well over 10 years ago. And I just realized that I either need to stop being the bottle pusher, or I need to find a way to package liquid products without a bottle. Listen, I'm not a chemist. I'm not, some radical thinker that was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. It took me several years to say, how do I reformulate my natural ingredient liquid laundry soap into something that could be sold without a bottle? And eventually I did it. I mean, I'm happy to say right now that this little teeny bar makes 1 gallon of liquid laundry soap. So the idea was I made it into a paste form that could hold solid enough to be in a little cardboard box, but was concentrated enough to where the consumer, once they bought it and took it home, they chose their own container, they used their own water. We've all got those two things. And they could make their own liquid laundry soap at home and getting a chance to refill their bottle container over and over and over again, eliminating tossing those big old plastic jugs in the trash. And that to me was really making that commitment in my business really helped solidify that commitment in my life. We were talking earlier about how the connection between life and business, they're never separated. And here my life is what spurred my business, and my business ends up spurring better in my life.
That's such a cool concept of just having a small bar that they can use with their own containers. Because I know for me, I love the pouring and the measuring and all of those things that aren't necessarily like too necessary, but it's just nice and kind of like a routine. And so, yeah, let's talk about self-care, because that's not an easy task for us entrepreneurs.
No.
When one of my clients just got engaged this weekend, and on Facebook they have like the 2 profile pictures next to each other, and it's the 2 people who got engaged. And so his was like him drinking with his friend, and then hers was like a business shot of her on the phone and like one of those branding shots. And it just got me thinking, like, we become our businesses. There's no separation. Like, we're basically selling ourselves when it comes to coaching or anything like that. There's no like freedom. People are watching us all the time. And so it's kind of daunting to go into and kind of overwhelming to think about. But there's definitely self-care ways that we can counteract that. What are some of your favorites?
So my favorites is setting a timer on this thing. The phone is in my hand and I have a timer that goes off every day at 11:30. It reminds me to eat lunch. And I have a timer that goes off every day at 5 o'clock that says, start cleaning up your desk. And what that means is I've got 1 hour to close it up, whether that's preparing some emails for tomorrow, cleaning up my emails from earlier. I do like to write. I still love pencil and paper. And so I keep like a paper planner. So it allows me time to kind of maybe reflect on my previous day, reflect on the week, prepare. But it really reminds my brain, wrap it up. Because as entrepreneurs, especially like I'm in a home office, the only thing is that door right there that's separating me from my house. So a lot of times if I go out into the home and, maybe fortunately my husband, he cooks and he does laundry and he's amazing. So if there isn't something for me to do right away, I almost feel a little bit guilty, like, oh, I could have stayed in there and done a little bit more, or why don't I just jump back to my desk, which is what I used to do at the very beginning. It was easy for me to work 10, 12, 15 hours a day, but was I really working? Like if we think about when you sit at your desk, just make it desk and work time. When you're out away from the desk, make it about the people around you, make it about yourself. Take time just to, honestly, I love to take time just to watch the wind blow by. Sitting in my hammock sometimes is the most clarity I can get in my day. And I've had amazing ideas and come up with great solutions to problems that were frustrating me, trying to figure them out at my desk. Because sometimes when your brain's allowed to relax, other things can come to the surface. And it's a really nice solution. So I kind of give myself time to enjoy that.
Yeah, I also have a home office. I'm in my bedroom right now. And so there's really no separation other than just a mental barrier from where I sleep and where I work, right? And it can be a lot. Like whenever I wake up, I'm like, oh, let me get on my phone and post something for my client, or let me check my email. And in the beginning, I would absolutely just stay in bed and work. But now I'm like that, these are two different spaces to me. And it's very important for me to keep them very separate. But yeah, in the beginning, it's hard. It's easy to work all day long.
And we're told, right, that if you're going to have a business of your own, you're going to work a ton. It's definitely more work than a 9-to-5 job. There is no doubt about it. People can admire you from afar. And at the beginning, people would call me during the day to do them favors or questions or stuff like that, because they think that because I'm not at a job in an office, that I must have all this free time. And in the beginning, I took advantage of that or allowed them to take advantage of that, however we might look at it. And then I realized that no, when I'm at my desk, it's no different than if you are, if you're a roofer and you're on a roof, you're not dilly-dallying with phone calls, be serious when we're at that work time, because it makes playtime that much more enjoyable. You've done what you had to do and get it taken care of.
Yeah. I have that struggle all the time. And I'm like, I'm working, I'm busy. Even though I'm home, I'm busy.
Right. Listen, I'm not great at it. I mean, even last night, I talked about setting that alarm at 5 o'clock. I didn't leave my desk until 7:30. I saw a couple emails come in. I knew they would be important. And like an idiot, I checked my email because that ding, ding, it's like Pavlov's dog. It's no joke. They have got it set up to where we are somewhat addicted. At least I'll speak for myself, somewhat addicted to checking my email too often. And I'm working hard to break that habit. Yeah. Let me share with you too, one thing that I interviewed a gentleman on my podcast, and he was my most recent interview, and he was all about disconnecting ourselves from technology. And of course, I was kind of like, yeah, right. Like that can't happen these days. And one thing that he shared with me was to put the phone on grayscale at night. I didn't even know what that was. I mean, I know what grayscale is. It makes everything black and white, but I didn't know I could even set my phone to do that. Well, they're actually in the settings of our phone. I have an Android and it's called like the wellness part, like wellness app inside the settings. And I was able to set my phone on grayscale. It comes on every night at 8 p.m. and doesn't turn off until 8 a.m. the next morning. And it keeps my phone black and white. And I said to the guy, so what does that do? And he says, it's the colors that keep us engaged. It's that colors, the bright reds and the yellows and the blues that keep us engaged with that. I didn't really believe him, honestly, but I was willing to give it a try because I am trying to improve my business life, separation. And I must say, it's fantastic. Fantastic.
I'm going to have to try it. I've never even thought about doing that. And
neither.
What a cool tip. One of the last questions I have for you is about marketing yourself in this hustle culture, right? Like we're talking about, but your products are very specific. Like when someone wants a waste-free product, you have the best SEO for that. You literally, like, your website is a waste-free products. And so when you think about this hustle culture and marketing, like what are your favorite marketing techniques that don't necessarily take a ton of time?
Wow, it seems like they all take so much unnecessary time. That's an impossible question, Haley. But I guess to reflect on it, I would say that emails are probably, and personal emails, I'm not talking about bulk emails. I'm talking about staying in contact with my existing clients.
Right.
I've worked hard to gain the repeat customers that I've had. I've worked hard to gain the trust of store owners who say, I believe in your product enough and I want to carry them in my store for my customers. So it's important to me to stay in touch with those people. A lot of times, I'll speak for myself again. In the beginning, it was all about just barreling forward. I need to get as many clients as I can and sell as much as I can. But it really is bad business if you're not taking care of the people who have gotten you to where you are today. And sometimes it's hard to slow down and take time for those people because it doesn't feel like we're working, right? It doesn't feel like you're making new contacts or new sales. So to me, I like to just stay in touch on an email, a little, hey, how are you doing? If I have their number in text or I know that they're text, I just like to reach out to them. Like there's this amazing organization that I donate soaps to. They're called Forward Paths, and they provide housing and they help individuals who are being aged out of the foster care system. Did you know that when you turn 18 in the foster care system, you're out of there? They don't care whether you have housing lined up, whether you've got money in your pocket or anywhere to go, which most of the kids don't. They don't have family. Right. So Forward Paths is an organization right here near my town. And I love to donate soaps to them. And I realized that months have gone by and I haven't even talked to her. I don't even know if they need soaps, but here I am wrapped up in my own stuff and my own problems in my own world. So I just text her real quick. I'm like, hey, Denise, do you guys need soaps? It's been too long. I'm sure you need soap. And she called me back. She was like, it was so good to hear from you. Thank you so much. I'm going to check tomorrow, and see how everybody's doing and I'll let you know. And it was that quick moment. I mean, it didn't take me but a moment to text her that. Right. And honestly, it came from my heart. I was like, oh my gosh, they must need something. And then it took her a moment to make that phone call. And, we both felt good just making that connection. Sometimes we overthink what it takes to connect with people.
Yeah. Like humanizing your whole business. It's easy just to send out your marketing emails, but after someone purchases something from you, like following up with them and genuinely wanting feedback and genuinely wanting to hear how it's doing. And then, of course, I love networking. That's the whole next quarter. And I'm pretty sure the next year, that's going to be my word, networking. And so just following up with the people that I network with, very important to me. And honestly business as a whole, but just like you're saying, it makes you feel so good and connected and make you feel like like the reason you started this is very purposeful. Is there anything else that maybe we didn't talk about today or you want to really drive home before we wrap up?
Well, I think that I would like to just mention, I guess because I'm proud of what I'm about to say, that I wrote my first book and it's finally out into the world. Now, I didn't do it in print. Part of me, as the eco warrior, says you don't need to print a book. But the other part of me who loves paper, and I still go to the library, like I said, and, actually read a physical book, I would love to be able to put it out there in print. But I wrote a book. It's called Going Plastic Free Room by Room. And it's all just about what I've learned over, 10 plus years living this kind of lifestyle of wanting to reduce my chemical exposure and reducing my waste at home. So it's really about my collective knowledge of learning it and applying it, what worked well, what didn't work at all. And then sharing my knowledge of businesses out there who are also doing the right thing. So not only are the chapters broken down room by room to give people the opportunity to say, look, I do want to tackle that, but we have to tackle it in chunks, right? It's too overwhelming to say, I'm going plastic free at home, or I'm going to ditch all the chemicals in my life. Like, that's just too overwhelming and not attainable. Mm-hmm. So I broke it down room by room. And then at the end, I give a detailed list of pictures of the items that I talk about and links to different businesses and things like that, and a checklist to kind of make it easy when you decide that taking that step is what you want to do. But I feel, at least for me, that learning why I should be doing that is usually the catalyst for me to actually make a new habit, to ditch something that I shouldn't be doing. Maybe it's bad for me or my health or the planet, and then actually take on a new habit and make it actually a long-term habit.
Congratulations on your book. That's very exciting. I can't wait to check that out.
Cool. I've downloaded it from the website, totally free.
Awesome. Oh, okay, great. I'll put the link definitely in the bio along with your products where people can check it out, because I'm going to try and post all of these on YouTube, but also if they don't see it on YouTube, they want to see how small that little laundry thing is, the little laundry powder. And so
I also do the same for hand wash concentrate. So this little, it's about the size of a deck of cards, makes a gallon of liquid hand soap. Wow. So imagine those great pumpers and foamers and stuff that we buy at the store that are meant to be used thousands of times. Instead, we treat them like single-use plastic waste, and we just toss them away. Now you can refill it. It's kind of like DIY without the hassle. Yeah. You just add water and make your own soap.
When it comes to pricing your products or our services or anything that we do, it's difficult figuring out our own self-worth, right? Yeah. A lot of entrepreneurs start charging very low rates and then realize the burnout happens and they need to charge more. And it's a whole mindset thing. But for products like yours that are natural and are handmade, take more effort than products that are at the store like Downy or any hand soap, really. It's just, your products would cost more because of the production and everything like that. So how in your head do you rationalize, like, yes, people are paying more for my products, but it's so worth it? And how do you tell them that?
Great question, because I think every business owner does struggle with that at the beginning, whether you're offering yourself as the product or whether you're offering a physical product. I knew at the beginning when I was making my product with my own two hands, wheeling and dealing 50 gallons of oil in my, garage lab. And I would say, okay, it cost me this to make it. And I never included my time, really, because I was like, oh, well, if it costs me $3, I'll just sell it for $5 and I'm making a $2 profit. Unrealistic, because what I didn't know what was coming as my business was going to grow, which is what I wanted it to do, were things like employees, insurance, warehousing, logistics. All of those things are coming. Now, whether it's a product like I do, or whether you're offering yourself as a service, those things are also coming. You're still going to have to get help at some point. You can't do everything and get it all done and be successful at it. There's just no way as you grow. So for me, it was about finally learning that, letting that settle in. Like, you're right, there are all these things that we don't know that are coming. And in a way, you have to seek out a mentor to have them enlighten you of these things that are coming. So for instance, a group of us business owners in the zero waste industry are starting up a nonprofit called the Zero Waste Business Alliance. And as the vice president, we're all looking to add in some tips along the way and education for other business owners so they don't have to hit all the bumps in the road that we did, whether they're looking to open a store or just reduce waste in their current business model. But that's one of the things that is most important for me to get out there, is that you have to consider what these things are going to cost in the future. And even though you can't afford them now or don't even need them, like, people will say, well, I don't need an accountant. I can, or I don't need a bookkeeper. I can do it myself. You're going to need that in the future. So take the time, make the phone call, find out what an average bookkeeper in your area is going to charge you, and work that into your future expenses. The same with insurance, whether it be health. If you're a service-oriented person and you're giving your content or your time, you're going to need to pay your own health insurance, life insurance, taking care of your family. For me, it goes beyond that. I need product liability insurance. And the more I learned, it was like, oh, in these bigger chain stores, not only do they want insurance, they want 2 million of insurance. So I had to look and see, okay, what were those costs going to be? And unfortunately, I didn't know any of that in the beginning, even though the people at the Small Business Development Center, they told me to look at the long haul and plan for that. And one of the best things that I learned from there was to get my bail money in order, BAIL, get my bail money together. And that was your banker, your accountant, your insurance, and your lawyer. Whether you need them now, it's not the question. It's getting them ready. So when the moment arises, because the moment will arise at some point in your business that you will need all 4 of those people, you'll have the contact and you'll know what they're going to charge you to get that done. And we don't want to call the first person in the book or the cheapest person in the book. So they even recommend to call 3 of them. So if you're looking for insurance, for instance, call 3 insurance agents. The first one, you're going to have no idea what questions to ask them because you're new to that whole area. So they'll give you some feedback. The second person you call, you'll have a little bit better understanding of some lingo and maybe some better questions to ask. By the third person you talk to, you're like an expert in asking the questions. And then you can decide what person is best for you, instead of having to pick them out at the very last minute when the shit's hitting the fan and you need a lawyer really quick to get you out of something.
Absolutely. I am connected with, his name is Gordon Firemark. He is the podcast lawyer. And so he is a media and entertainment lawyer. And I'm interviewing him for this podcast just to ask about trademark and all those legal things. And he always says, you never think you need it until you do. And then it's usually too late.
That's right.
And so just like you're saying, even if you don't need it, you might. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, right?
So true. It's so true. And in the early days, we think we're too little. We don't need those things. But if your plan is to really grow a big business, a sellable business, an award-winning business, whatever it is, you have to plan for those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Plan for your goals. Awesome. So where can people find you and find your products and find your book?
Well, thank you. They can find everything is on our website called wastefreeproducts.com. We're on social media, of course, just like everybody in the world is these days. If you want to reach out to me, I love to interact. And, if you have specific questions at home that maybe you're trying to work out ways to be, more reducing your waste at home or a certain way, or you're concerned about a product that you're using, I'm happy to share my experiences and what I've learned along the way. You can email me at Angie@wastefreeproducts.com. And the book is also on the website. It's called Going Plastic Free Room by Room. And you can go and download it and start reading it today and implementing those things right away.
Awesome. And then you also have a podcast.
I do. It's called The Grateful Redhead. And I just really like to talk to people about what they're doing in the world to be kind to themselves, be kind to others, and be kind to the planet. And if all those three things intersect, well, then that's even cooler, and we want to hear about it.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I love to end every single episode with you giving 3 actionable tips for the listener that they can start doing today.
Easy. So the 3 tips that I like to give to people, they can start right away, and it doesn't cost them any extra money, which I think is really important. So tip number 1 is to buy bars, not bottles. If you want to buy the Tangie bar, even better. But any chance that you have to buy a bar version of a product versus a bottled version, you're skipping out on the extra water weight, and you're skipping out on the plastic waste that's going to come after you use that product. So that's a winner. The second thing is to grow something. I don't care what it is, grow anything. It gives us more of a connection to the earth. It shows, especially if you have a child in the house, what growing actually looks like. We're pretty disconnected from where our food comes these days. And if you live in a city and you're listening to this and rolling your eyes at me right now about growing something, the next tomato you buy at the store, take a seed from it and just shove it in the ground next to one of those trees that the city puts along your sidewalks. Just shove seeds everywhere you can go. And then the third thing would be read labels. Start reading your labels, really looking at them. And I feel that it's easiest for most people to start with food. Food labels are required by law, so they have the most information for us. Start to look at ingredients and learning about those ingredients. You'll start to develop what I call your brand standard. You'll start to decide what ingredients you're going to allow in your life, what ingredients you want to try to keep out of your life, and ones that are good for you that you want to try incorporating in. And then what happens when we start learning about food labels is it naturally pushes us into reading the other labels that we get, whether it be for our body products or our cleaning products. It just kind of naturally flows into those other areas to make decisions about what ingredients you want in your life.
Those were great tips. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It was amazing to talk to you, and so many tips on business, going waste-free. Lots of value in this episode.
Awesome. Thank you, Haley, for inviting me on. This has been really nice.
Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and courses, please check out espressopodcastproduction.com.